very flowery mug.
Yo, 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 what is up, everyone? It's Mini TV here coming at you again I can't believe it, this podcast has actually lasted 2 weeks, so we have some succession. We've made it, guys. Today, as usual, I've scoured the world for the best Dota 2 analysts the money can buy. Unfortunately, they weren't available, so we've got these two papagas instead. We have our tea-drinking Filipino believing terrible headset person Jazz, and we've got our Overwatch professional Super Pac-Man. How is everyone doing today?
Not bad, not bad.
Amazing. I'm actually really amazing.
Really amazing. Perfect.
Amazing.
Luckily, we've got some talking points because the conversation is really sparking off already. And two things I just want to quickly mention. As of obviously the last week, we had two teams pick up a sponsor. Actually, one just got picked up today, and one before. So Chicken Fighters got a sponsor called High Coast Esports, and there was a bit of an issue because they changed their name when they were playing their match against OG, because Valve rules state that they have to have the same name when they're participating in games, but they couldn't, so the game was delayed by like 2 hours. And then the other team, Mud Golem's, got a sponsor just like as of 3 hours ago of recording, called Tundra as well. So the first talking point I want to pitch to you guys is this style of structure and this sort of style of league in Dota 2, we haven't really seen much, but do you think this is kind of more likely to bring in sponsors, or is it more kind of forced in the sense of like Overwatch, where it's just forced in that respect?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. I think obviously if it brings in sponsors, that's actually a good thing because more people are going to be drawn to Dota, or Dota, however you want to pronounce it. But there's other problems that we're going to go on to talk about that I think it's a shame that it's not so easy to change things around. First of all, it sucks that Chicken Fighters have changed their name because that was the best name in this league, Chicken Nuggets. But now we don't even get a chance. We don't even get the chance to call them that anymore. Got to call them High Coast Esports, which is really boring.
Can I ask who was their sponsor before?
So they didn't have a sponsor. Yeah, they're only 4 sponsored teams, if you can call it even sponsors, really. Because technically, OG obviously had Red Bull, but they're like a player-owned org, so they're a bit of an anomaly. Then you have 2 other player-owned orgs, Secret and Enigma. They're player-owned orgs. Obviously, they have their own sponsors, but it's like. And then you have Liquid, which is a real organisation, and they have their own sponsors itself. But those are really the only 4. All the other 4 invited teams weren't really sponsored. I guess Viking.gg is a kind of a team sponsor. But yeah, really, there wasn't really much sponsors outside of the top 4. But now they have Tundra and High Coast Esports, which haven't really heard of anything outside of just hearing them now. But they are a sponsor and they are like paying, And I guess
I looked out because Tundra's like a Russian esports. They're bigger in FIFA. I have seen them before in FIFA.
Okay.
I used to watch a bit of FIFA, but makes sense that a Russian esports team is getting involved in Dota. That makes a lot of sense. To be fair,
true.
We're going to see a lot more trolling and a lot more arguing.
Yeah, Sukablia, the stuff comes on. So that obviously it's good news, and I think this is kind of what we expected as well. Before, if you think about just even before this league, like getting into Dota as a sponsor is probably the worst financial decision you could ever make as any organization. Like if you think about it, though, really, like what is a Dota team going to offer you really in terms of like from a pure financial situation is pretty weak, particularly if the lower teams are getting knocked out early in tournaments. They're not getting a lot of game time. They're not getting ad revenue or advertising for the sponsors. But I think this now with the league, there's a set amount of games. They're going to get a set amount of airtime on these big Twitch channels, and so they're going to get eyeballs obviously on it, and that's in itself going to pay for it. And I think this structure will allow for that more often. Whereas before it was really that maybe the top 4 teams in the whole of the Dota sphere getting sponsors. Now you've got at least 6 just in the EU division itself. So I think that's a good thing for sure going forward.
Overwatch is more like sponsored by companies that want to sell their brand on the back of successful Overwatch. Like, you know, like Coca-Cola and stuff sponsor different people because they're advertising Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
I don't see how for example, Team Liquid are a gaming organization. I don't know. Dota doesn't seem to have as many brands.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, like Red Bull sponsors.
Yeah, of OG, yeah.
But I mean, like, I don't know how the money works. Basically, I don't know how the money works for, like, for example, Tundra, how they get, like you just said, how they get money, because they're not like a product, are they?
No. I mean, it's like it is. Probably the easiest way is to explain how the top teams do it. So let's say Team Liquid, for example, they pay their players a salary on top of obviously their winnings. They might take a percentage of the winnings, but I'm not 100% sure if that's even the case with Team Liquid. But then Liquid obviously are then sponsored by Intel, like Dell, all these other game like Razer, Alienware, these kind of companies, and so like having fans and support of Team Liquid are then giving advertising to other companies who will then pay Team Liquid, which will then pay the team itself, and going forward there.
I see.
So yeah, I mean, but that's how it works. But then I think in previous organisations, and I say organisations Finley because they're not really organisations, but let's say Mouse Esports is like a big kind of popular Dota team. Whenever the TI would roll around, they wouldn't. In that sense, what they would do is they'd pay like their players a salary like every month, but then they'd also take a percentage cut of the winnings, like quite a large percentage cut of winnings. So it's like it gives the Dota players some kind of stability in that they're getting paid every month. But when it comes to actually them doing well, the organisation will then get paid back by the tournament winnings of themselves, So that's why what would end up happening is like sponsored would only sponsor for like TI or for these big tournaments and then drop them immediately after because there's no big tournaments happening after that. Whereas this league structure then is providing stability to always get in a more almost organic revenue and growing in the Dota sphere, which is obviously good.
Definitely, and I think it's something good for the people who are trying to make it as a pro, rather than we've had the conversation before that unless you can somehow support yourself, whether through family or another means, you need to dedicate your entire life really to become a Dota pro. And if you haven't got an income from somewhere else, it means you have to go to work. And if you have to go to work, then you're not going to be able to be as good as these pros.
You're not a full-time pro.
Yeah,
exactly.
True, yeah.
And so if these sponsors come in, then it allows maybe some of the lower division teams, the lower division players, to be able to dedicate this time to Dota, to then making it higher and better instead of it always being the same people, the same teams.
Yeah, for sure. And just quickly as well, I mean, I don't want to spend too long on this, but I wanted to briefly talk about the BBC documentary of No-Tail. I know I sort of sent it to her. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but that was really, really cool. I mean, it was a great, if you haven't seen it, I definitely would recommend watching it, but it was probably a really good, almost advert to esports in general. Like you could send that to like your gran or something and she'd kind of understand it, and I thought that was really cool. But it's just sort of showing how esports is really almost becoming more professional by
definitely,
and that's obviously. But any thoughts on?
Well, I definitely don't have a house like No-Tail anyway, so he must be doing something right.
Is it like 17 bedrooms?
Yeah. I mean, it
like,
kind of makes sense, right? Because I think they use it for their CS:GO squad as well, and it's like has all their like, I know they have like their own chef and like their coaches and managers and stuff. So that was pretty cool. But let's actually start talking about some of the Dota in itself, shall we? We kind of had some introductory topics, but obviously last week we ended up giving each of the guys a series to watch. I caught all the Liquid series, Jazz took all the Secret series, and George had the OG series. So Jazz, do you want to give us a quick rundown of the Secret series against Chicken Fires? Or
absolutely,
no, sorry, not Chicken Fires.
It's getting Mud Golems.
Mud Golems, yeah. Well, now Tundra.
Yeah, Tundra now. Yeah, exactly. So this was a game that I thought that Secret was going to absolutely obliterate, which the first game they did. It literally lasted only about 20 minutes, 21, 22 minutes, I think. And this is one reason and one reason only. They let Puppey take Chen. Simple as. This team is too good when you give them push-in heroes like that. Matumba Man was on Monkey King, and Nisha played OD, and it was a good game, but it was just Mud Golems literally got a little bit behind, and the setup that they had, if you fell behind, you was never going to catch up again. So that game was really quick. I thought game 2 was going to be exactly the same, but instead Mud Golems actually ended up winning that game. That one was a very long game. Me and you, Jake, we watched that together, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, this is very back and forth. But they managed to take it, or should I say Tundra, not Mud Golems, managed to take it. But in game 3, Secret, although it was a lot more of an even game because, again, they banned out the Chen, the Kotl, they made sure that things like that weren't able to get through, so that game 3 couldn't... Oh no, game 3 Puppy did get Kotl, sorry. So it was a bit more of an even game, obviously, but Terrorblade, and I thought Zai played awesome on his Beastmaster.
Yeah.
Again,
those kind of pushing
having those
heroes,
units,
right? Yeah, those
pushing heroes
objectives.
again, yeah. Honestly, Secret just seemed to get it going, get it moving, and then they just take objectives.
I think that, like, you see a lot. I mean, Kyle talks about it a lot. You have these heroes like Nature's Prophet, like Chen, like Beastmaster, like Enchantress. Like, you give these heroes to some of the top teams, and they will just clinically pick you piece by piece because they have like this kind of almost itinerary of what's going to happen, and the game is just completely out of the other team's hands. But that was really cool. And then just quickly talking over the Liquid series, they had 2 this week. They played Viking, the first 2 on the first day on Tuesday last week. Complete picking apart really of Viking. They opened up Crystal Maiden and Puck both games, and then had Lone Droid both games, and it was like a 23-24 minute just kind of complete stomp, and somewhat similar to Secret but different in the sense that like we had just honestly, I think it was just a complete outplay really. Like some of the strats from Liquid weren't too out of the ordinary, but I think with Lone Droid, just group around him after a good laning stage, and they just dominated really. Viking looked very, very kind of bamboozled, which surprised me really because I thought it was going to be a lot closer series than it was. And then they played against Enigma.
After all the gossip,
the little drama, like Viking were giving it the big one
yeah.
basically against Liquid, but then they just got stomped. And then the other series that I thought was going to be a lot closer than it was the Enigma series. Fantastic series. I would say probably that might have been the series of the week. If you didn't catch it, I would definitely recommend doing it. Really close kind of series throughout. Game 1, I think Liquid won. I think honestly they just outplayed Nigma. But then we saw in game 2 and 3, Nigma really just having the overall better strategy. And I think this is where we're starting to see that I think Nigma and Liquid are actually on par in terms of playstyle and actually how good they are in the game. But the strategy and the overall mindset of like hero players like Kuroki to really just mastermind their way ended up eking them out in that series. But fantastic.
It was an interesting series, like you said. The game 1 was a bit of a stomp by Liquid, having Bristleback and Dragon Knight was just 2 fatties that they couldn't bring down with their heroes.
For sure.
Game 2 went the complete opposite way. Nigma smashed it. They just
Legion.
Literally, there was no coming back. It was awful.
I think the Legion pick. Like, I'm just really not a big fan of the hero. Like, if he doesn't do well in its lane, which he didn't, doesn't offer too much. Earth Spirit had no lane to really rotate to other than the top lane. And when you're playing a hero like Earth Spirit, if you can't gank mid, can't play around bot, you're very limited in your playstyle. And then
in game 3 was really close and really interesting and really fun. So
then again, still it's like, yes, it was a closer series, but I think PL was always going to outcarry that game. Like, Liquid had to play perfectly that game 3, and they didn't. But I still, after that game, I still think that Liquid can easily play with the best. I think it's just the strategy element that's probably just not there yet because they are a newer team. But moving on to the OG series versus now High Coast Esports, previously Chicken Fighters. George, I don't know if you got any thoughts on the series.
I did actually watch it. To be fair, I did actually watch it. So that's a big step for me. Game 1. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it was blowing the world away, but it was pretty close. But OG took that one. Things that stood out for me was that Thompson played a great Invoker. I don't know the name of the player that played Troll Warlord, but he was getting kited everywhere. It seemed like a very frustrating game for him. But anyway, OG took that one. The second game, again, tightly contested, but what's their names now? They were Chicken Nugget.
They're now High Coast Esports.
High Coast
Esports.
High Coast Esports.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard that name. It's weird, but got to work with it.
Yeah. Again, Thompson went mid lane Omni Knight, which
It's a peculiar
looks
pick.
cool, but didn't work out. So yeah, they didn't unfortunately take that one. Although did look like it could have gone either way at one point. And then finally, game 3. I really enjoyed. This was, in my opinion, the best one. And pretty much looked like OG were going to win it the whole time, to be honest.
George, talk to me about Morphlin and Undying.
Morphlin, I was going to say this was actually my moment of the series was Thompson or Morphlin turning to Undying, getting a bazillion strength and just basic. I mean, they won the game at that point anyway, but it was really
sick.
Cool.
I mean, the combo looked absolutely busted, and like it was no surprise that a team like OG are just like finding the most broken combo or the most broken heroes and just like abusing the game with it. Like it was.
You
crazy.
can see that that's going to be something that's going to especially against any sort of Undying pick.
Yeah.
But anyway, that my player of the series was Thompson on that one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just the way he's so good on Morphling actually, and the way he's just utilised. I remember there was one bit where they had both Saxa and Morphling, like both like two Earth Spirits like rolling in together. It looked so cool.
Yeah,
actually.
it was like some sort of Earth Spirit arc.
Yeah, it was dope. It was super cool. So cool. Just what we're gonna do now is we're gonna have a quick. I wanted to show you the top plays of the week and some of the fails of the week as well. So we've got a little video prepared, and take a look.
As they're all here as a 5-man on the high ground. See who's able to find the jump on who. As Weeha, he's going to show himself mid. Quakefa in immediately with the Dragon Tail stun. If they got the burst to kill him off, they do. Tiger has the follow-up epicenter. They take down Weeha. Now they're going to look to try and get back out. Tiger with the Burrow Strike, but he's already been ruptured. Getting burnt low by the Sunray. Mind Control comes in with a Berserker score to finish him. The egg is attempted, but again, Liquid, they take it out straight away. They also find the cleanup.
Well, it seems like Lycan is farming just fine. They're actually going to bring the Crystal Maiden down to the bottom lane. The Lone Druid isn't necessarily needed anymore. They get a nice roll on to Shad here. Shad trying to get those Jingu stacks up. Doesn't manage to get it. It's going to be Frostbitten. Turns around. Throws... Oh, look at that. They use the Glyph to be able to stop any lifesteal to come out. Now they're going to body block Celery up. He does have his tether, but the creep wave is not there in time. What a great setup from Liquid, and the Glyph usage was just beautiful there as well. Back over to the mid lane, though. The support showing bottom lane means mid is free for Aramis to be able to rotate.
Top.
Saxa.
Quick
just
moves
always
here.
on the prowl.
Straight in he goes. On to Era. He's not going to get his chance to react to this. Omni Slash does come out, bringing mid one down to half HP. Over to the side. Supernova attempted, but they're in on top of it, and they're able to take it down.
Get it.
And it had Thompson inside. So that's the two of them gone. Midbon fighting back, getting the crits as well, allows him to get Charlie. Charlie does have the buyback available. They're going to use it straight away. They know that there's no tail, no Thompson. They want to try and fight this high coast, and they'll be able to do so. Midbon, he's going to go down the once.
He jumped in.
He's pretty deep. They're going to have to set up two here with the Bloodbright and Remnant down. Midbon dragged up to the high ground underneath the tower as Midbon will fall. Saxa, he's just got to try and get out of here. But with the Yule's control, he's also going to get surrounded. They're going to take down another, and we'll probably be able to check down the replay. I mean, No-Tail took Thompson inside. Was Thompson actually rather low?
Also, we're going to say really...
Thompson was full HP, full mana. Full HP, full mana when he was taken into that egg. That's whoo.
So yeah, so we just saw that. That was pretty cool. Seeing some of the fouls and the big plays. My personal favourite is amazing. My favourite was definitely when No-Tail ended up like killing Thompson with the egg. I don't know if you saw that in game 2. Like No-Tail eats Omni Knight in the egg and kills him from Fulton. I think that was pretty funny. Cool. So moving on. Let's talk about any hero of the week we thought on this week that was probably outstanding from all the teams. I would like to put one hero in the mix, really. I think Nature's Prophet We didn't see it probably as much. Like it wasn't like picked every game, but I think every game it was picked had a big impact. Firstly, from Secrets game 1 against Mud Golems, or now Tundra, but also Alliance's only win against Nigma is when they had Nature's Prophet as well. In the Secret game, it was a position 3, and in Alliance's game, it was position 5 actually. But that both kind of rat style, I think, was really really important. Any other heroes you thought that might have been pretty standout this week?
I agree with you with the Nature's Prophet. What I think I liked to see was the Nature's Prophet when it was linked with someone, whether like a Chen or a Kotl, so that not only were you grabbing other heroes, you then had Nature's Prophet able to port in at the same time. So you were able to take some of the slower heroes around the map, and all of a sudden it's like what you think is a 1v1 or a 2v1 suddenly turns into a 4v, 2 or whatever.
Presence.
It's just global presence was immense, and so moving around the map is something that the professionals do. They use all of the map to their advantage.
Yeah.
So MP was really, really good for that.
Yeah, and I think probably I would probably go to say his Nature's Prophet was the favourite. There was a few others that obviously were strong, like Nyx. OD was picked up a little bit as well. I want to mention probably the weakest hero of the week probably was the Alchemist, in my opinion. Like we saw it played I think once in carry, and obviously the most notable one was the Nigma offlane Alchemist. I really like the strategy, like because they're playing against Wraith King, obviously a hero that has low armor because he's a strength carry. The acid spray doesn't work, but also because of the gold you can get from his skeletons as well, the bonus gold, because obviously Wraith King ends up sending like 8 to 16 skeletons out, and it was a nice idea, but really in practice it just didn't work. It fell flat on its face. Didn't do much in the lane, and then like got a blink, and all he was a blink stun, and it just kind of fell apart. And that's the only game Nigma did lose against Alliance, and I think that was most notably the kind of
think Wraith King as well was another one that I couldn't believe how much Wraith King can carry. There was a couple of games where, like, I know he's not always going to be like the best carry in the game, but someone who, I've always imagined Wraith King as a bit of like a push carry hero that if you don't win within 30-ish minutes. But some of the late games that were going
well, the Mud Golem
King,
series
he was
itself,
so
right?
strong.
Like with the giant string especially, like that was really
that was
cool.
hilarious.
Like,
Seeing a massive Wraith King just run around the place was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I think definitely Wraith King and Prophet, probably the two biggest. So let's have a look about.
No Lion, George.
No Lion, George. There was no.
I was gonna. I didn't watch all the games. I'm looking to see if anyone picked Lion.
I think what was it? I think I saw like a Lion game on one of the like SA regions, but none in Europe. I don't think. I think they realised the hero's pretty trash at the moment.
When will they realise?
I don't know. I think the problem with Lion, right, is that I think the hero is like good, but I think Shadow Shaman fulfills a very similar role in terms of its kind of lockdown, but it also allows objective taking with like the wards, whereas Lion is like very niche in that sense.
There is another hero. Oh, sorry, I don't know if we've got time.
Carry on.
Something that really surprised me was Bloodseeker.
Yeah, true.
I was so shocked that all of a sudden, I think who was it? Someone picked it to make sure that it didn't get copied by the Grimstroke mid. What game was that?
It was the secret game, Secret Matomba Man.
It was the secret game.
Yeah, it was game. I think that was the game. That was the game too, right?
They did lose it. Yeah, you're right. They did lose it, but it was such a smart pick.
Yeah,
and then in the Nigma versus Alliance game, they played Bloodseeker twice there.
Yeah.
I think it was once in the offlane and maybe once
carry as well. Yeah, that's right.
And he's someone that I just thought since the changes would just drop off.
Yeah,
the fact that
true.
It was actually really.
I think what's really interesting, actually, now you say Bloodseeker, is that I thought perhaps it might be used as carry because the shard got buffed, and the shard's really good. 2% max health as damage, but it also heals you as well. Really, really impactful as a carry. However, we did see it played offlane a few times, and I thought offlane Bloodseeker would have fallen off completely because they nerfed Bloodrite, which was really its main spell to play around. Reduction in damage, and I think increase in cooldown and mana cost. And I thought that was just going to be the end of offlane Bloodseeker, but we saw it actually quite a lot, and I think it's sort of showing its potential just because of its usefulness, just in terms of its rupture. So you never have issues with catch. You get a rupture on someone and they're always like stuck in place. But the Bloodrite's still really useful as well, particularly when you have heroes like Puck who are very evasive. Like a silence is really, really key. And then you've got the Gleipnir as well. Like it builds in from Rod of Atos. Like is normally an item that can be useful for a Bloodseeker because of the Maelstrom is really useful because of the magic amp from the buff you get from Bloodseeker's Q, and then the Rod because they could stay in place for the Bloodrite. So yeah, you're right. I think Bloodseeker was a good shout. as well. But just so because of issues of time, let's have a look
Yeah.
at the games for next week coming up. I should have probably had that like a little graphic or something. I might be able to try and add it into post production. I don't have it actually with me here. I took a picture of it on my phone.
You don't even know what.
I can send it to you if you want, Jake.
No, I'm sure I do have it on my phone somewhere. Where is
Look,
it?
hey,
do
if you
you want
wanted
me to take over at this point?
Yeah,
Yeah, go,
go on,
George.
George. We got.
So week 2, what we're looking at is we're looking at right. The first game is Liquid versus HCE. I can't even remember what they are.
High Coast, thanks.
High
There you go.
Coast.
Yeah, nice.
High Coast Esports.
Yep.
Thoughts on that game?
George, you should be the host actually. Yeah, this would make so much more sense considering you have no knowledge of the scene. It would actually fit better if you were the host actually. Liquid High Coast Esports. I mean, I think that'd be an interesting game. Obviously, I'll be watching it because it's a Liquid game. It's the only Liquid game of the series. I think they showed their game. When Chicken Fighters were playing against, who were they playing against? We were literally just talking about it. OG, wasn't they? Yeah, they played against OG.
Yeah,
they went 2-1 against OG, and I think they're actually, I think they might be the 5th best team in the perhaps in the league. I mean, obviously Alliance, Viking as well, great teams, even Tundra. But I think that game will be closer than we expect. But I think Liquid will win it out just simply because I think they're just better players, put simply, and I think they'll go that 2-1. Obviously, the next game, OG versus Tundra. That's obviously the Mud Golem stack. George, how do you see that game going? OG versus Tundra.
I'm just a big OG fan. I like to see their creative plays, so I would always bet on OG to win this whole tournament and go all the way. So OG for me.
And then actually, this would be an interesting matchup. It will be Tundra versus High Coast Esports. So they both will be playing twice this week. I think that will be a really important game because arguably these are, if you'd ask most people, I'd say these are the bottom 2 teams. Even though I think they might be able to hit 5th. They were the 3rd and 4th winners of the Decider tournament. And I think this game will whoever loses that game, shall I say, I think will get relegated next season. So I think that's really important. Really, really important that game. Whoever
it's the first game from the non-invited people, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Last week was obviously all of them fighting against
some of the direct
top
invites.
4.
Yeah, correct.
These will be exactly. So that'll be interesting.
And then it's Viking v Secret. I'm sure Jazz will be watching that game.
I'll be watching that game, no doubt.
How do you see that game?
Again, I think after the way that Liquid completely demolished Viking, I can see a similar thing with Secret, especially as the way that Liquid did it within under 30 minutes. Lone Droid pushing, if they give the similar sort of heroes to Secret.
Yeah, Tom Man plays Lone Droid, plays Lycan as well, those kind of heroes.
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's important to note,
exactly
though, Viking did beat Secret, I think, I'm not sure if it was the last matchup they played against each other, but they definitely beat them in a proper series as well. So it's not out of the question that Secret will win it. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that Secret are probably favourites.
But they will.
Yeah. And then I would probably argue the game of the whole week probably will be Alliance versus OG. I think that's on the Sunday, isn't it? The last game on the Sunday.
Yep.
George.
Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, Saturday. Sorry, not Sunday. Apologies.
Yeah.
Because they don't, because EU Region doesn't play on Sunday yet, so it's the Saturday. Sorry. George, Alliance versus OG. How do you see that game going? Do you think? Sorry, George. I'm speaking English. Do you want me to speak a different language or? Hello.
Precious.
To George.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, you were all frozen on.
Oh, okay, right.
Right.
I thought you were just having a mind blank. Alliance, George, playing, which is not out of the question. Alliance against OG. Obviously, Alliance, S4, Handskin, FNG, Limp, Nico Baby, versus OG.
There's a lot of old hands in there.
Yeah,
for
sure.
I personally think that the pressure's on for Alliance because they didn't get off to the best start against Nigma.
Good shout.
So there's a lot of pressure on them to sort of pull it around, let's say. But again, OG are going to come out with something. They're going to win, no doubt, in my mind.
Yeah, and this is something I did actually want to talk to you about, because I know you play chess. And actually, when I was watching, this is going to sound strange, Jazz probably won't understand the reference, but OG honestly reminds me, whenever they play, it reminds me of like Magnus Carlsen, which, let me explain this. So, like Magnus Carlsen, whenever he plays chess against some of the top grandmasters, he would play a particular chess line that is very uncommon and almost wacky and a bit, in some ways you could argue that's not the best line, like theoretically speaking. But the reason he would do that is to put the other grandmasters off their game, because they're not used to seeing the same line, if that makes sense. They're seeing a different line being played. And the same with OG as well. They're playing heroes like Omni Knight mid, like this Morphlin, Earth Spirit. I know that's a bit more common, but I feel like OG are drafting and playing these styles of gameplay where it really puts the other team kind of confused, and they're not used to it. Like, Magnus, if he plays a regular E4 opening, for example, like his grandmaster will know exactly how to play against it. But when he starts playing like some random moves that are different, the other grandmaster doesn't have theory or books to follow on, because it's putting them out of their comfort zone. And I think OG is very similar like that as well. But I think it can be a detriment as well, because game 2, I think it was theirs to win, right? They were 14k gold up, and then they end up throwing it. But yeah, I just don't know what you thought about that of OG in terms of how they play.
Yeah, I mean they switch things up, don't they? I mean, I'm not in any way clued up on the Dota meta, but I know they've been doing it for years, where they've been doing things that everyone goes, what's going on? How can you pick this? What's going on? Even viewers don't understand what they're picking, because they've almost built up strats just for the tournaments they're playing in.
Yep.
Very true.
So I think they're probably a very difficult team to play, because there literally is no way sometimes of predicting what they're going to come out with, and that means that the other team's making up drafts on the fly to deal with it. So I would imagine, it's probably really difficult setting up against OG, because there is no kind of, well, if they pull out one of their strats, there's no reference to go on.
Exactly. No, I definitely agree.
To fight it.
I think that's almost one of the hardest things to play against a team like OG. Whereas I think a lot of the other teams, you kind of have an understanding of what they're going to play against, but it's in some ways like better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And I think that's a big problem. But there's one question actually that I forgot to ask last week, but I think is really relevant. Is at the end of the 7-week period, after these 6 weeks have all played, who is going to be number one? Who's going to win the league? Do you think?
Okay, I'll go first. I mean, I'd like it to be OG, but I think Nigma are looking really strong, personally. So either one of them is my opinion.
I mean, it's good.
I'm not sure, but OG.
Yeah, but I think Nigma's a good shout. I mean, obviously they're the only team that's played against another top 4. Like, assuming we think the invited teams are all going to make top 4 and they won, I think that makes a big advantage. I think I personally don't think there will be any team that goes undefeated. I think everyone will lose at least one series. So having Nigma have already played their series against Liquid now. They don't have to play them again. That's a big advantage. What about you, Jazz? Who do you think is going to come out on top at the end of the series?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with George. I think Nigma are very strong, but I still think Secret have just got. Even though they don't do these weird things against OG, everyone knows a lot of time what their plan is, but they just execute so well. Even in that game 2, it wasn't quite the way that they probably wanted it to go, and it still was like an 80-minute game because they kept nearly bringing it back. And I just think, man, Secret are just so good. I'm hoping Secret.
I'm so glad we waited for this week to say, actually, because if you asked me last week, I would have said Liquid would have won the whole series, and then they played against Nigma and lost.
They could have beaten a game.
They could have beaten against Nigma. But I do think that I would have loved to have seen, and I honestly, I would have said, if you asked me this question last week, I would have said Liquid. But after the series against Nigma, I think it showed that although their play is world class, and I think they're some of the best players probably in the world, or at least in the European division, and they can play against any of the top players. I think their strategy is still a little bit lacking and needs to be improved, really.
Yeah, I get that.
And so because of that, I think It's hard to say. Secret, OG, or Enigma, I think. Are probably going through. I think it's hard. It is really hard to say. I mean, if you had to force me, just because we've seen Nigma play against the top four, I would say Nigma. To be fair, because I think this, and this goes on to actually a viewer question we're gonna answer, because we've kind of talked about a lot of the stuff right now, and I might as well bring it into it right now. Is one of the viewers asked, what's more important, play or draft? Which I think is a massive question in itself, and there's a lot to be kind of said into that. But just quickly, and before we move on, talking about this, I think when it comes to the top echelon, a lot of the players are equal in skill. The thing that does kind of separate it is the draft and the strategy, and I think in this case, Nigma, as well as the other captains as well, have it, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, completely agree. These are all the top pro players of Dota, and so they're all going to have the percentage of them difference in is so small, but the draft can make a game unwinnable almost. You hear some of the analysts and casters, they're like, I just don't see how this team's going to win, and that's before they've even started playing. And so when you've got drafts like that can happen, that's what makes the difference. So I actually would agree with draft.
Draft.
I mean, I think there's
obviously not in my pubs.
Yeah, I think in your pubs, I don't think it matters what you pick, really. Like George can go around playing line every game, and it doesn't matter really whether
I can play with a joystick. Play with
a joystick still be terrible. Still wouldn't really matter. But I think that, with that being said, I think there's definitely elements where play can be more important than draft. So let's say, for example, that Nigma versus Liquid game, right? The draft, I think, was definitely like the game 3, the one where they had PL versus Liquid's Drow and Zeus. Obviously, PL is eventually going to outscale both, like Drow, especially Drow, just can't stand people standing on top of him, doesn't deal great with illusions. Zeus does well with illusions, but can't have anyone in front of him, and PL can deal with both. And so I think the draft advantage really in that game in itself was like 70-30. But Liquid almost won that game. And the reason why they almost won that game is they played near perfect. And I say near perfect because the one moment Zeus got caught out, the game was basically over. Or, the initiation, there was one smoke gank near the end of the fight. Liquid so Nigma ended up taking out 2 or 3 heroes out from Liquid, and the team fight was over. And when you lose 1 or 2 heroes, the game's basically over. But I think those small margins. Let's say Zeus didn't get picked off. Let's say he didn't die without buyback. Let's say Drow didn't lose the Aegis unnecessarily. They were like 10k up. Obviously, they had the Agnum's blessing as well, but those small and I'm not saying it's easy. Like, they had to play literally perfect, which is almost impossible to say because no one plays a perfect game of Dota. But they could have won that game, and that was purely because of how well they played.
But that's I don't know if it was BSJ that was saying it or if it was just something we were talking about afterwards. It's the fact that when the draft is that bad, if you have to play near perfect for 40-50 minutes, then that's very unlikely to happen. Whereas if the draft is a lot better, they can make some mistakes.
Yeah.
They literally made 1 mistake and the game was over. 1 or 2 mistakes. And Smoke of Deceit, the most OP item in the game, only 80 gold. Heard it here first.
That guys, just a quick PSA as well. Wards are free, so please buy them. Because
wards are free.
Please buy them. Thank you very much.
Buy wards. Save a carry.
And final viewer question: is any? Well, I mentioned it a little bit, but is any team going to go 7-0 and unbeaten in the upper division? Do we think?
No. I think someone will always beat someone else.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's that much better than anyone else that they won't lose.
I mean, I think if there's going to be a team to do it, I think it's going to be Secret, just because they have the pedigree of not losing games at all. Although they lost I think the last 2 tournaments they played. Before that, they went on an 8-9 month streak of just not losing any series, let alone a map. They were 2-0, 3-0 in the grand finals in a best of 5. So I think if Secret are on that kind of form, I think they are unbeatable. I'm just not sure if they're in that form really, because we haven't seen them play in itself. This league format is definitely something new to Dota, and I think it's interesting as well. Like if you think about before, like tournaments, like it was always the playoffs, that was important. The group stage was never really that important because it only happened to seeding. Whereas now, every group stage game in the format is like a playoff game because you never get a chance to play them again. So every win is so important. So seeing this dynamic play around, I think is interesting. I was listening to Insania have an interview after his series, and he was saying how I think it's definitely peculiar, and I think there's definitely some things to be improved on next season. But it brings a new, different style to Dota that hasn't been seen before. I don't know if you like it. I mean, I know. I don't know if you'd prefer it playing that late, or as a fan, what do you think of the format before we end out this week? Anyway,
go on, George.
I'm personally never been much of a fan of league formats. I'll watch Overwatch a little bit, and again, I've never been a big fan of regional leagues and stuff like that. Personally, I've always been more of a knockout type fan. I just like the intensity of a knockout.
Yeah.
How basically it is all on that one game, and that makes it that much more special. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I like league setups simply because I think they're more easily digestible for myself, rather than watching like 8 hours straight of all these Dota games that I want to watch a couple a day. I can watch throughout the day on YouTube. A lot of time if I'm following a team, sometimes I'm trying to catch up on previous games and they're already playing the future ones that I've not even had a chance to look at. And then I'm having to jump straight to the end of the grand finals or something, and I've not even watched the previous games. And so this, for me, is a bit more digestible. I totally understand what George is saying. It's not so intense. But at the same time, when you're in a really good game, you forget that it's just a league setup because you're just like, oh my word, this game is so close. I feel like you still get a good intensity.
Yeah, no. Obviously, I think we will have those playoff games. Obviously, this is all going to culminate to the major as well eventually. So I think that's going to be interesting. Personally, I like it just because it feels almost more like traditional sports where there's like a league format and they're playing every week and there's going to be like a champion at the end of it, and that's going to have an impact somewhere down the line because of the majors and their invites and stuff, and having this weekly games of Dota, and even if you're a degenerate like me, there's always Dota being played somewhere in the world. Like literally, I woke up this morning, there was like SEA and some China division, some lower division games. Like there's literally Dota like 24/7 anyway. But obviously not for your region.
So you think it's better for the game?
And I think it's better for the game. Yeah, I think we haven't seen this many amount of sponsors in the European division ever before, and I think it's only because we've just seen this league format before. Normally there was like 2 or 3 European teams that were sponsored, and that's because they were the best teams in the world. Whereas now you have a team like Tundra and High Coast Esports that are middle of the pack, but you need those middle of the pack teams to have a healthy competitive scene. So.
And can I also just do a shout out to whoever it is that's arranged the league? This is the second week now. I've not really looked too far ahead. That the best game is on Saturday night. Yeah. How important is that? True. That is the most time that people are probably going to be watching if they can, and they're putting the best games on late. So the way that they've arranged that is really good.
Yeah, really, really smart. Cool. I think that's going to wrap up for our first week of the DPC, of DPC Digest. Any final shout outs, Jazz George?
George was wrong. League setup is definitely good.
George, final thoughts.
My final thoughts is that I don't know enough about Dota as I probably should do to be on a podcast about it.
We love you anyway.
Appreciate your honesty.
I'm just watching OG, and I'm just watching OG, and I'm loving it. So.
Hey. Nice. We're loving it too.
That's my fault.
It's cool. Right, that's going to end it, guys. Thanks again for watching. We're going to be trying to get this a weekly thing, every sort of sent out every Monday. So tune in. Should be on Spotify and then other podcasts going in the future. But until then, keep keyboarding and grinding. Peace.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.